We've now pumped standard chrysanthemum 6, chrysanthemum 6 extra, blonde chrysanthemum 6, titanium chrysanthemum 6, Miller glitter, and the color changing blonde to Buell red comets. I've got a variety of 6 different comets. Now I'd like to show how to prepare a comet for firing, and then I'll take these out and fire them, video them, and I'll show you the different effects these different compositions produce. The first thing I want to do is make some pistons, about 1 inch tall, 1.5 inch diameter. The piston that I put under a comet protects the comet from the blast of the lift, allowing the lift gases to get to the comet, but preventing it from fracturing. Sometimes if I fire a comet without a piston under it, it'll come out of the gun in pieces, maybe one large piece, but several flaked off smaller pieces. The piston can prevent that. I've got a 1 inch ID tube that's just about 1.5 inches, just a fuzz under 1.5 inch OD. Any tube similar to that would work fine. If you've got a 3/4 inch ID tube that measures 1.25 inch OD, let's say, that's going to be fine. The discs can hang over the edge of the tube just a little bit, but I want a piston that's approximately 1.5 inch diameter with no part of the piston hanging over larger than that. So I'll just cut about a 1 inch long piece of that tube. Now I want to have some discs with about a 1/4 inch hole in each one. The lift gas fire is going to come up around the disc and pretty consistently light the comet anyway, but I also like a little fire to go up through the disc to make sure it hits the bottom of the comet dead center and also lights that end very positively. So if I don't have discs, 1.5 inch discs that have a hole in it, I punch, 1/4 inch diameter, 5/16 inch diameter, something like that, dead center in the discs. Then if I have the time to let it dry, I can use a little wood glue to glue the discs on each end of the tube, or if I'm working one step to the next, I've got a battery operated hot glue gun. Please observe all the hot glue gun safety tips in that article in the safety section. Whenever I use the hot glue gun, I turn it off. I have no flammables exposed right now, but it's just a good practice to get into. And then after I get the 2 discs glued on the tube, that's a completed piston. Now I'll need one of those for each of my comets. The wrap around a comet, I want 2 turns of either 30 or 40 pound craft paper. 1 turn around one of these comets is about 5 inches. 2 turns is about 10 inches. So I'll cut them, to be on the safe side, I'll cut them 12 inches to include the little extra diameter that the pass fire and matching creates. This is 36 inch long, 30 pound paper. I could have used 40 pound paper. Actually, I don't want to fold it in half. 3 into 36 is 12. I want to cut this into thirds to get 3 12-inch pieces out of each 36-inch piece. So now I've got, and I did, when I cut my widths of paper, I cut them about 9 or 10 inches wide. That's going to be long enough for me to go to both ends of the construction I'm about to show and tie it in a knot and trim off any excess from the bottom. So I've got a 9.5 inch wide. Anywhere 9 to 10 inches works well for me. I'm going to take one of my Comets, in this case one of the C6 Comets. I'm going to put my piston under it. Now for a lift charge, I have determined that with my homemade, what I would call 4FA, -8 to +12 black powder, 7 grams lifts this very nicely. I experimented with 10 grams, which really blasted it up into the air. 7 grams lifts it nicely. With some powders, even 5 grams will lift a Comet to a good height. So I'd recommend making a Comet and firing it with your black powder and making sure that it goes to a good pleasing height. The idea of a Comet is to burn out at apogee or maybe just past apogee to create a nice Comet effect. I've determined that 7 grams of my black powder accomplishes that with these 1.5-inch Comets, and that is a flat 1/2 tablespoon of my black powder is 7 grams. So that's what I will use under each Comet. I'm going to put that, these are a very thin, flimsy, fold and close sandwich baggies. I put the lift charge down in one corner of the sandwich baggie. And I'm going to create sort of a pass fire that goes from the top of the Comet down to the bottom of the Comet. In this case, I'm cutting about a 4-inch piece of my match pipe. And I want black match sticking out of both of those ends a good 1 to 1.5 inches. I'm going to put my black powder away so it's not sitting here exposed. I always minimize exposure as much as possible. Now I fold over to J-hook the black match on one end of the pass fire. I shove it down into the corner of the baggie of lift. Then I gather the baggie around the pass fire tube. That J-hook prevents that match from being able to be pulled out of the lift baggie of lift. Clip off the excess. Then for a little added security, I also go ahead right at the joint where the baggie ends. I tape that baggie neck to the pass fire tube. So now I have a pass fire tube, black match going down into the lift charge. I bend that over to create an L, and I lay that right alongside the piston and Comet assembly. What I'm going to do, and then I also fold over the exposed black match at the top of the Comet and lay that right on top of the Comet. My idea in this construction is to have the leader go down, light the top of the Comet and the pass fire, which goes down to the lift charge. The lift charge goes, and that lights the bottom of the Comet. I want to ensure good, positive, rapid ignition of this Comet before it ever leaves the tube, the mortar. Now I'm going to put a leader going down in there. I'm using a gun that's about 12 inches long. So from the bottom of the Comet assembly to the top, I want a good, a long enough leader to come out the top to either put Visco or an electric match into. So I'm going to put, on coming out of this, a good 12 to 15 inches of match. I've got about 14 inches there. I want to have enough black match to dead end at the top end and come out the bottom a good inch. and that excess, so I'm dead-ended at the top for either visco or an electric match. I'm folding over the match like that so it can't be pulled easily out of the leader pipe. And I'm going to lay that right on top of the Comet. So that leader is going to come down, light the top of the Comet, light the match going down to the lift charge, and that whole assembly lights, and then the Comet is lifted out of the mortar. Just for some added insurance, I put a little bead of glue a couple inches on the leader pipe. I don't want that leader pipe pulling out of this whole assembly, the enclosure bag, as I'm loading, handling, carrying. So I've got enough paper to be gathered and tied around the leader, and I've got enough paper to be tied around the bottom of the lift charge. And I wrap this up, this whole assembly up, good and tight in this first turn, snugging it up. Roll the rest of it up, put a bead of glue on the wrap. Now, making sure that the leader is down against the top of the Comet, I gather the wrap around the leader, and then making sure that the lift charge is up against the bottom of the piston. I gather that there, and then I'll tie that with a clove hitch top and bottom of that wrap, and then it's ready to trim that excess paper off the bottom, fuse with either visco fuse or an E-match. And I'm actually, for videoing purposes, I'm actually putting a piece of visco into this leader, and I'm lighting that piece of visco with another piece of quick match with an E-match in it. So when I hit the Q, the E-match pops and lights that second piece of quick match, but the visco in there creates a little bit of a delay. I like to be able to relax, hit the Q, the fuse is burning, I aim my camera, I'm sort of relaxed, I'm not focused on the firing system, and I am ready to video the Comet when it lifts a few seconds after I've actually hit the Q. That's how I'm creating the delay between hitting the Q and actually having the Comet lift to video it. Now I also, it's very important, since I want to keep track of these, to note which one it is as I'm videoing it. This was plain C6. So I will label that, both on the bag and up here on the leader. And then that's ready to fuse, put some visco in or an E-match. So that's how I'm finishing these Comets, ready to fire. Might as well show how I am getting this ready to fire. So the way I'm preparing these is I'm cutting about a 6-inch piece of visco fuse, J-hooking that into the top of the leader. Taking a little aluminum foil tape is very, very sticky, fireproof, doesn't come undone. I wrap a piece of little square of aluminum foil tape around that junction. The J-hook keeps that visco from being pulled out of there. I will create another little section of quick match. I will J-hook this end of the visco in right alongside the black match and that end of the quick match, and use aluminum foil tape to secure that end. Trim off any excess black match that's in there. Then I'll take an E-match, this pipe is large enough to put the shrouded head of the E-match right down alongside the black match. Fold it over. All this was demonstrated in the E-firing lesson back in, I guess it was firing in 201, maybe it was 101. Wrap it twice, throw a half hitch around it. That secures the E-match in there good, but I always have the shroud on that E-match head just in case that ever takes a blow or has to be removed if it misfires. Then I just take a little masking tape and fireproof that junction there. So I've got the Comet labeled, E-matched, visco fused delay, ready to take out and video and demonstrate to y'all. Oh, it glitters primo. That's such a nice glitter. Oh, I like that color change. Very nice. Ooh, another nice color change.